Today, I want to talk about something deeply personal and incredibly powerful: identity. In a world that constantly tries to mold us, judge us, and sometimes even erase us, it's essential that we stand firm in one core truth: do not negotiate who you are. Your values, your story, your personality, your beliefs, these are not things to be traded for approval or diluted to make others comfortable. The moment you begin to compromise on your identity to fit in, to be liked, or to avoid confrontation, you start losing the essence of what makes you you. You are not a product on a shelf up for negotiation. You are a human being with depth, worth, and purpose. Whether it's peer pressure, societal norms, or even the expectations of those closest to you, none of these should have the power to redefine your identity. Yes, we grow. Yes, we evolve, but growth is not the same as surrender, so I challenge you. Embrace who you are, own your truth, and never apologize for being authentically yourself. Because when you stop negotiating who you are, you start living the life that was meant for you, not the one others designed for you. Your identity is the foundation of your existence. It encompasses your values, beliefs, culture, personality, history, passions, and even your flaws. It is the sum of your experiences, your choices, your dreams, and your truth. And because of that, it should never be put on the bargaining table. In life, there will be countless situations where you may feel pressure to bend, to shrink, or to silence parts of yourself just to gain approval, avoid conflict, or maintain a sense of belonging. This pressure may come from institutions, relationships, social media, workplace environments, or even family and friends. It might start with small compromises, laughing at jokes that don't align with your values, hiding parts of your background, or pretending to agree with opinions that don't reflect your beliefs. But those small compromises stack up. Over time, they become heavy. They start to strip away your authenticity. You cannot afford to treat your identity as something disposable or something that must be polished and reshaped to meet someone else's standards. When you negotiate who you are, you send a message to yourself and to the world that you are only worthy when you are edited, and nothing could be further from the truth. Non-negotiable means your worth is not dependent on whether someone else agrees with your truth. It means you show up as your full self, regardless of whether it makes others uncomfortable. It means you don't apologize for your upbringing, your accent, your values, your appearance, your story. It means standing tall in a world that often wants you to shrink. Of course, this doesn't mean you're inflexible. Growth, learning, and evolution are essential parts of life, but growth is internal and self-driven. Negotiation, on the other hand, implies that you're giving something up to gain approval or safety. Your identity should never be what you sacrifice in that transaction. People might walk away, opportunities might be lost, but if they required you to become someone you're not, they were never truly aligned with your purpose. In the end, preserving your integrity will always be more valuable than gaining approval at the cost of your soul. Confidence is often misunderstood. Many people think it comes from achievement, validation, appearance, or external success. But those things are temporary. They can disappear overnight. Real, lasting confidence comes from one place: authenticity. The bold decision to be exactly who you are, without disguise, apology, or fear. When you live authentically, you are not performing. You are not adapting yourself to fit into rooms that were never built for you. You're not playing a role to gain applause, nor are you dimming your light so that others feel more comfortable in your presence. Instead, you're rooted in the truth of your identity. You walk into spaces with clarity about your values, beliefs, and boundaries, and that clarity becomes your confidence. Think about people who seem effortlessly confident. They might not be the loudest, the most attractive, or the most successful in conventional terms, but they exude a quiet power. That power doesn't come from perfection. It comes from comfort in their own skin. They know who they are, and they don't spend their energy pretending to be something else. That's the kind of confidence authenticity gives you. It allows you to stop performing and start living. On the other hand, when you're not being authentic, when you're constantly editing yourself to be accepted, you create a fragile form of confidence. It's conditional. It depends entirely on how others perceive you. That kind of confidence is like a mask. It may look strong from the outside, but underneath it's anxious, insecure, and afraid of being exposed. You're constantly wondering, what if they don't like the real me? What if I mess up this image I've worked so hard to create? That's not confidence, that's survival. Authenticity gives you permission to let go of that exhausting performance. It tells you you are enough as you are. And that message, when truly internalized, is the soil where deep, unshakable confidence grows. Living authentically doesn't mean you won't face criticism or rejection. In fact, being real may attract judgment, because not everyone will be comfortable with your truth. But here's the difference: when you're authentic, you can handle that rejection without losing yourself, because you're not looking for approval. You're standing in self-respect, and ironically, authenticity tends to attract the right people and opportunities. When you are honest about who you are, you become a magnet for relationships, work, and environments that align with your true self, not the false version you've had to maintain. So if you want confidence that lasts, not the temporary kind built on applause and appearance, but the grounded kind built on self-trust, start by being real. Be radically honest with yourself and with the world. There is no greater source of strength than living in full alignment with who you truly are. In a world that constantly demands access to your time, energy, thoughts, and identity, boundaries are not just useful, they are essential. They are the invisible lines that protect your peace, preserve your authenticity, and reinforce the truth that your identity is not up for negotiation. Many people mistake boundaries for walls. They believe that setting boundaries is rude, selfish, or confrontational. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Boundaries are not about shutting people out. They are about defining where you end and where someone else begins. They are an act of self-respect, not rejection. When you set clear boundaries, you are saying, "This is who I am, this is what I value, and this is how I expect to be treated." Without boundaries, it becomes incredibly easy for other people, intentionally or not, to manipulate, reshape, or diminish you. You start saying yes when you mean no. You start tolerating behavior that goes against your values. You start abandoning your needs just to maintain peace or avoid conflict. And before long, you don't recognize yourself anymore. You've given away so much of your identity in pieces that what remains no longer feels whole. Establishing boundaries helps you reclaim that wholeness. It gives you the strength to say, "I'm not available for that. That doesn't align with who I am. I don't accept that kind of treatment. I deserve to be heard, not dismissed." And yes, setting boundaries often means facing discomfort. People may get upset. They might accuse you of changing or being difficult. That's because your boundaries challenge the dynamics that benefited from your silence or compliance. But remember, the people who truly respect you will also respect your limits. Those who push back against your boundaries are often the ones who benefited from you not having any. Boundaries are also crucial in your relationship with yourself. It's not just about protecting your energy from others. It's about holding yourself accountable to your own truth. It's about resisting the urge to self-abandon when things get uncomfortable. It's about choosing alignment over approval. Whether it's in friendships, romantic relationships, family dynamics, or the workplace, boundaries are the framework that support a strong and unapologetic identity. They remind others, and yourself, that your time, your values, and your emotional well-being are worthy of protection. So draw your lines clearly, not out of fear, but out of love, for yourself, for your peace, and for the life you're building on your terms. There is a vital difference between growth and people pleasing, and understanding that difference is essential to living authentically. Growth is intentional. It's about evolving into the highest version of yourself. It comes from within, from a desire to learn, to heal, to improve, and to stretch beyond your limitations. Changing to please others, however, comes from fear. It's about shrinking who you are to avoid rejection, criticism, or discomfort. One is rooted in self-love, the other is rooted in insecurity. We live in a society that often blurs the lines between progress and performance. We're praised for adapting, applauded for being easy to work with, and encouraged to go along to get along. But if the changes you make in your life are based on what other people expect of you, not what you believe is true or necessary, then you're not growing. Your shape shifting, you're negotiating who you are for the sake of acceptance. Let's be clear, it is absolutely okay to change. In fact, change is necessary. A refusal to grow is a refusal to live. But the motivation behind your change matters. Are you becoming healthier because you want to live longer and feel better in your body, or because someone else shamed you into it? Are you adjusting how you speak or dress because you've matured and discovered new layers of your identity, or because you're trying to fit into a culture or space that doesn't value diversity? Growth expands you. Pleasing others often erases you. When you grow from a place of authenticity, you become more yourself, not less. You develop new skills, gain wisdom, and refine your character in ways that align with your deeper values. You're still you, just a stronger, wiser, more resilient version. But when you change to make others more comfortable, that growth is hollow. You might receive validation in the short term, but it comes at the cost of self-betrayal. And the truth is, no matter how much you try to change to please others, it will never be enough. The standards will always shift. The expectations will grow heavier. Eventually, you will find yourself in a life that looks good on the outside but feels empty on the inside, because it's not built on your truth. To grow is to say, I want to evolve, but I refuse to disappear. It means taking feedback, learning from mistakes, and becoming better, but not at the cost of your identity. It means being flexible, not for approval, but for alignment. It means remaining grounded in your values while reaching for something greater. Real transformation is not about conformity. It's about becoming more deeply rooted in your purpose. So grow, but grow in the direction of your truth, not someone else's expectations. There is a price to conformity, and it's often far greater than we realize. While society may reward those who fit in, stay quiet, or follow the rules without question, that reward can come at the cost of something far more precious: your identity, your voice, and your inner peace. Conformity, by definition, is the act of aligning your thoughts, behaviors, or appearance to match those of a group or societal norm. Sometimes this happens in obvious ways: dressing a certain way, adopting popular opinions, staying silent when your conscience urges you to speak. Other times, it's more subtle: repressing your creativity, downplaying your culture, or censoring your emotions to avoid seeming too much or too different. Over time, these small compromises chip away at your authenticity. The cost of that kind of conformity is steep. You begin to live a life that isn't truly yours. You follow a career path you don't believe in. You stay in relationships that don't nurture your spirit. You say yes when everything inside you screams no, and slowly but surely, you lose touch with the parts of yourself that once felt vibrant, alive, and unique. You become a curated version of yourself, pleasing on the surface, but hollow underneath. What makes conformity even more dangerous is how quietly it sneaks in. It often disguises itself as politeness, professionalism, or being easygoing. But when you constantly put the expectations of others above your own values and needs, you're not just being cooperative, you're disappearing. And let's be honest, conformity doesn't guarantee belonging. You can follow all the rules, mold yourself to every standard, and still not be accepted. Worse, the more you conform, the more approval becomes a moving target. You're never quite enough. Because you're trying to meet criteria that were never designed with your individuality in mind. True belonging comes from being seen as you are, not from being accepted for a version of yourself that's been sanitized and edited. When you conform too much, you might gain surface-level acceptance, but you lose the deep sense of fulfillment that comes from living your truth. And this doesn't mean that every form of adaptation is wrong. There are times when compromise is necessary for community, collaboration, or growth, but compromise is not the same as erasure. The line is crossed when you are no longer recognizable to yourself, when you've given up so much of who you are that you feel like a stranger in your own life. Living authentically, on the other hand, can be uncomfortable. It may mean standing alone, facing criticism, or being misunderstood. But it also means freedom. The freedom to live aligned with your values, the freedom to express your truth, and the freedom to experience relationships and opportunities that are rooted in who you truly are. So ask yourself, is the acceptance I'm chasing worth the parts of myself I'm sacrificing? Because every time you conform to gain approval, you are making a silent transaction. And in the long run, the cost of that transaction may be far too high. One of the greatest misunderstandings people have about relationships, whether personal, social, or professional, is the belief that we must mold ourselves to be more likable, more agreeable, or more marketable in order to be accepted. But the truth is, authenticity is a natural filter. When you show up as your full, unapologetic self, you may not attract everyone, but you will attract the right ones. Being your authentic self sends a clear message. This is who I am. This is what I believe. This is how I move through the world. That clarity, while it may repel those who don't resonate with your truth, also draws in people who genuinely align with your values, respect your boundaries, and support your journey. These are the relationships that stand the test of time, not because they're built on perfection, but because they're built on truth. When you hide parts of who you are to gain approval, whether that means minimizing your beliefs, masking your struggles, or faking enthusiasm, you may be able to create temporary connections, but those connections are built on a performance. And performances are exhausting to maintain. Eventually, cracks will show. You'll begin to feel drained, resentful, or lonely, even when surrounded by people, because they're connected to a version of you that isn't real. It's important to understand that authenticity is not about being liked by many. It's about being loved by the few who truly see you, and being seen, fully and completely, is one of the deepest human needs. You cannot be seen if you're constantly camouflaging yourself to fit someone else's idea of who you should be. When you embrace your uniqueness, your quirks, your passions, your background, your imperfections, you not only feel more at peace with yourself, but you also give others permission to do the same. You become a magnet for people who value truth over appearance, depth over surface, and realness over image. This applies in every area of life. In friendships, authenticity leads to deeper emotional bonds. In romantic relationships, it fosters trust and intimacy. In work environments, it builds mutual respect and opens the door to collaboration based on shared purpose rather than politics. And in leadership, authenticity inspires loyalty and integrity because people are drawn to those who are real, not just polished. Yes, there will be people who don't get you. That's okay. Let them go. Because trying to maintain relationships that require you to hide or minimize who you are is a form of self-abandonment. And over time, that kind of compromise corrodes your confidence and dims your spirit. But when you stand in your truth and walk through the world as your unfiltered self, you create a space for others to do the same. You stop chasing validation and start cultivating connection. You stop begging to be included and start building your own circle, one rooted in respect, alignment, and mutual authenticity. Remember, the right people will never require you to be someone you're not in order to be loved, respected, or welcomed. They will appreciate you not in spite of your authenticity, but because of it. In a time when conformity is often rewarded and authenticity can feel risky, speaking with your unfiltered voice is an act of courage, and a necessary one. The world does not need more noise, more copies, more curated perfection. It needs you, your voice, your story, your truth, as it truly is, not as you think it should sound to be palatable or accepted. Your voice is more than just the words you say. It's your perspective, your lived experience, your emotional honesty, your creative expression, your culture, your insight, your tone, your silence, your fire. It is the instrument through which your identity takes shape in the world, and when you water it down, mute it, or try to correct it to meet someone else's standards, you rob not only yourself of power, but others of the very message they may need to hear. Every person has a unique voice, but too many silence theirs out of fear of being judged, misunderstood, excluded, or labeled. And while those fears are real, they should never outweigh the truth that someone somewhere needs what only you can offer. Whether it's your way of seeing a problem, your ability to connect through storytelling, your cultural insight, your compassion, your humor, your truth, telling, Your voice carries impact that can't be measured until it's used. You never know who you're liberating just by being fully yourself. Your authenticity can break chains. It can inspire someone to speak up, to heal, to try again, to stop hiding. Your voice can shift narratives, open minds, and challenge systems. But that only happens when you decide you are no longer available for shrinking, for censoring, for pretending. It's not always easy. Using your unfiltered voice can mean standing out in uncomfortable ways. It might cost you approval, it might disrupt familiar dynamics, it may even make people uncomfortable, because truth often does, but your silence won't protect you from rejection. It will only disconnect you from your purpose. And you don't have to be a public speaker or an activist or a writer to use your voice. You use it every day in the choices you make, the way you show up, the boundaries you enforce, the way you tell your story, and the truths you refuse to let go of. Speaking up might mean telling your friend that their joke was offensive. It might mean turning down a job that compromises your values. It might mean finally saying, "I need help," or "This isn't who I am anymore." In every case, using your voice is a reclaiming of power. It's a refusal to be edited for the comfort of others. It's a declaration that you matter not just in theory, but in practice. We live in a world that desperately needs honesty, originality, and integrity. When you withhold your voice to blend in or keep the peace, the world misses out on something irreplaceable, your perspective, and the longer you withhold it, the harder it becomes to reconnect with it. But once you decide that your truth is worthy of being heard, without apology, without trimming, without translation, you step into a kind of freedom that no one can take from you.